Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th for a question.
Would the senator yield?
Absolutely, to my good friend from the 10th.
Thank you, Senator. I just have a few questions, so if you will indulge me for a moment, please.
Certainly.
I noticed in here that the Secretary of State's role seemed to be diminished in this legislation. Can you explain why?
The Secretary, it's unusual for the Secretary of State to also chair the State Election Board, as that has been the practice, as you know. This legislation would allow the General Assembly to select the chairman of the State Election Board. The other 4 officials would be as currently selected. The current Secretary of State would be an ex officio member. This is consistent with the State Board of Education's board, and the Superintendent of Education is consistent with the Georgia Department of Transportation's organizational structure and the Board of Regents, just to provide a couple, 3 examples. So it is designed to provide more citizen oversight in our election process.
Senator Yield?
Certainly.
Senator, let's talk a moment about the election process of that superintendent, if you will, is selected by both the Senate and the House.
Correct.
How do you guarantee that person is going to be nonpartisan when we are, in fact, a partisan body?
Well, excellent question, Senator. I think the challenge is going to be for each body to agree on the individual that will chair our state election board. I would suggest to you that the current Secretary of State is a partisan elected official. This gives both bodies the opportunity to choose someone that they are confident in that can chair the election process in Georgia.
Senator, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't one way of assuring that this person would be nonpartisan would make the vote at least 2/3 rather than a simple majority?
I appreciate the Senator's input. It's not a part of this particular legislation, but I accept that as a suggestion for future consideration. Thank you.
Senator, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, let's talk about the AG's role in all of this. I noticed that the AG is still responsible for administration of a hotline. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's the establishment of a hotline. It's the AG's responsibility to allow a voter, an elector, to potentially, who feels that there's a potential issue, to report it directly to the AG.
Senator, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity that the AG would politicize an election, considering the behavior of our current AG?
Sir, I would not speak to that. I would suggest to you that the Attorney General's responsibility is to enforce the law. I have confidence that he will do just that.
Senator, are you concerned about the behavior of our Attorney General in this most recent election?
No, sir, I'm not concerned about the Attorney General or any other constitutionally elected official.
Senator, further yield?
One more question, Senator. You may have more friends in the background who want to challenge me.
Senator, I have lots of other questions.
I thought you might.
And I certainly would appreciate it if you would indulge.
Absolutely. Please, I'm happy to, Senator. Thank you.
Senator, I notice in your legislation that and I'm trying to find the exact place on here, but there seems to be an error. And I'm looking over on page 13.
Page 13, line number.
And I'm starting at line 313.
Yes, sir.
That line reads, the majority of members of a board of elections and et cetera, may petition the Secretary of State. I believe in there you probably meant your superintendent to continue the deliberations. Is that correct, Senator?
I'd have to review that and seek legal counsel. Let me assure the Senator that this legislation has been vetted multiple times by individuals very capable and competent in election law. If you would be happy to point out that specifically, I will certainly address the issue.
Over on line 315, it says that the commissioner and et cetera, may petition the Secretary of State to continue any hearing. I don't see anywhere in your legislation where it says the Secretary of State has the hearing. It's your superintendent that's holding those hearings. So why would that line Why would they have to petition the Secretary of State when he has no role in this governing board?
Well, the Secretary of State is still the administrative officer for all elections, and he works hand in hand with the state election board. I think what you will see here, that these are options for local governments to request that their election officials be evaluated, a performance review, and then if appropriate or if needed, that those problems could be addressed up to and including the removal of the local election board. I'd like to point out that this legislation includes a restriction that can only occur in 4 instances at any given time. I would suggest that in our prior use of this type of legislation in our school boards, that happens extremely rarely, and we would anticipate that this would be a very rare occurrence.
Senator Yale?
Yes, sir.
Senator, on the next line on 316, it says, upon assuring of good faith, the state election board may continue the hearing. So there's a conflict, a definite conflict in your language in this legislation.
I appreciate the senator's input, and again, I'd be happy to take that up with legislative counsel, but I'm confident that this legislation is appropriately and correctly prepared.
I respectfully disagree, Senator.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Chair